creation of heaven and earth. In the four great continents of the world, only the western continent of Cattle Gift's Wuzhuang Temple had this treasure that was known as grass-returning cinnabar, or manfruit. It took 3,000 years to blossom, 3,000 years to form the fruit, and another 3,000 years for the fruit to ripen, so that very nearly 10,000 years had to pass before the fruit could be eaten. Only 30 fruit were formed each 10,000 years, and they were shaped just like a newborn baby, complete with limbs and sense organs. Anyone whose destiny permitted him to smell one would live for 360 years, and if you ate one, you would live for 47,000 years. That day, the great immortal Jin Wan had received an invitation from the original celestial Jade Pure One, inviting him to the Miluo Palace in the heaven of supreme purity to hear a lecture on the product of undifferentiated unity. The immortals who had studied under this great immortal were too numerous to count, and he now had 48 disciples who had all attained to the full truth of the way. That day, the great immortal took 46 of them with him to hear the lecture in the upper world, leaving the two youngest, Pure Wind and Bright Moon, to look after the temple. Pure Wind was 1,320 years old, and Bright Moon had just turned 1,200. The great immortal gave his instructions to the two boys. As I must obey the summons of the original celestial Jade Pure One and go to the Miluo Palace to hear a lecture, you two will have to look after the temple carefully. An old friend of mine will be coming this way before long, and you must entertain him very well indeed. You can pick 2 manfruits for him as a token of our friendship. Who is this old friend of yours, master? The boys asked. Please tell us who he is so that we can entertain him properly. He is a priest sent by the Tang Emperor in the East, the great immortal replied, and he is known as Sun Zeng. He is the monk going to worship the Buddha and ask for the scriptures in the Western Heaven. Confucius said, Don't have anything to do with people of a different way, replied the boys with smiles. Ours is the esoteric sect of the Great Monad, so why ever are you friends with that Buddhist monk? You are not aware, the Great Immortal replied, that he is a reincarnation of the Golden Cicada, the second disciple of the Tathagata Buddha, the ancient sage of the West. I made his acquaintance at a Ulumbana assembly where he gave me tea with his own hands. As this disciple of the Buddha paid me such an honor, I regard him as an old friend. When the two immortal boys heard this, they accepted their master's orders. Just as he was on the point of setting out, the great immortal gave them some more instructions. There are a limited number of those manfruits. You must only give 2, and not 1 more. When the garden was opened, we all shared 2, said the boys, and there are 28 now left on the tree. We won't use more than 2. Although the Tang priest is an old friend of mine, said the great immortal, you must be on your guard against his ruffian followers, and you mustn't let them know about the manfruit. The great immortal then flew up to heaven with the rest of his disciples. The Tang priest and his followers, 3, meanwhile, were enjoying themselves strolling on the mountain when they noticed some tall buildings rising above a bamboo grove. "What do you think that is?" Sanzang asked Monkey, who replied, "It's either a Taoist temple or a Buddhist one. Let's go over and find out." It did not take them long to reach the gate, and they saw a cool pine-covered slope, a tranquil path through the bamboo. White cranes brought floating clouds. Monkeys and apes offered fruit. Before the gate was a wide pool, and the shadows of the trees were long. In the cracks of the rocks grew moss. Many a purple hull was massed together. A red aura enveloped the lofty towers. It certainly was a blessed place. A cloud cave on Ping Lai. In its pure emptiness, little happened. Its stillness gave birth to the thoughts of Wei. Green birds often brought letters from the Queen Mother. Purple pheasants carried the classics of Lord Laozi. There was a majestic air of the Wei and its power. It was indeed a divine immortal's home. Sanzang dismounted and saw that there was a stone tablet outside the gate on which was inscribed in large letters, "Blessed land of the mountain of infinite longevity. Cave heaven of the Wuzhuang Temple." "You were right," said Sanzang. "It is a Taoist temple." "Good people must live in this temple," said Friar Sand. "Said as it is in such fresh light scenery. Let's go in and have a look around. When we go back to the east at the end of our journey, this will be one of the finest sights we'll have seen." "Well spoken," said Monkey, and they all went in. On the next gate was pasted the couplet, "Residence of divine immortals who never grow old, home of Taoists as ancient as heaven." "This Taoist tries to intimidate people by talking big," said Monkey with a laugh. "When I wrecked the Heavenly Palace 500 years ago, I never saw anything like that over the gate of the Supreme Lord Laozi." "Never mind him," said Pig. "Let's go in. This Taoist may well be quite a decent bloke." As they went through the second gate, they saw two boys come scurrying out. This is what they looked like. Pure bones, lively spirits, pretty faces, and hair tied in childish tufts. Their Taoist robes naturally wreathed in mist. The sleeves of their feather clothes were floating in the wind. Their jade belts were tied with dragon head knots, their grass sandals lightly fastened with silk. In their elegance they were unlike common mortals. The Taoist boys, pure wind and bright moon. The two boys bowed and came out to greet them. "We are sorry we did not welcome you properly, Venerable Master," they said. "Please sit down." Sanzang was delighted, and he accompanied the two boys up to the main hall of the temple, which faced south. There was a patterned lattice window that let through the light on top of the door that the boys pushed open. They asked the Tang priest to come in, and he saw two huge words executed in many colors hanging on the wall: Heaven and Earth. There was an incense table of red-carved lacquer, on which stood a pair of golden censers and a supply of incense. Sanzang went over to the table and put a pinch of incense in the censers, with his left hand while performing triple reverences. Then he turned round to the boys and said, "This temple is a home of immortals in the western continent. So why don't you worship the three pure ones, the four emperors, and all the ministers of heaven? Why do you burn incense to the two words heaven and earth?" "To be frank with you, venerable teacher," the boys replied with smiles, "it's quite right to worship the top word heaven, but the bottom one, earth, gets no incense from us. Our teacher only put them up to ingratiate himself." "How does he ingratiate himself?" Sanzong asked. "The three pure ones and the four emperors are our teacher's friends," the boys replied. "The 9 bright shiners are his juniors, and the constellations are his underlings." When Monkey heard this, he collapsed with laughter, and Pig asked him, "What are you laughing at?" "They say that I get up to no good, but these Taoist boys really tell whoppers." "Where is your teacher?" Sanzong asked them. "He had an invitation from the original celestial Jade Pure One, and is gone to the palace in the heaven of supreme purity to hear a lecture on the product of undifferentiated unity, so he's not at home." At this, Monkey could not help roaring. "Stinking Taoist boys! You don't know who you're talking to. You play your dirty tricks in front of our faces and pretend to be oh so innocent. What heavenly immortal of the great monad lives in the Miluo Palace? Who invited your cow's hoof of a master to a lecture?" Sanzong was worried that now he had lost his temper, the boys would answer back and spark off a disastrous fight. So he said, "Don't quarrel with them, Wukong. We'll be going in a minute, so we obviously need have nothing to do with them. Besides, as the saying goes, egrets don't eat egret flesh. Their master isn't here anyway, so there would be no point in wrecking the place. Go and graze the horse outside the gate. Friar Sand, you look after the luggage, and tell Pig to take some rice from our bundles and use their kitchen to make our meal. When we go, we shall give them a few coppers for the firewood. All do as I've told you and leave me here to rest. When we have eaten, we shall be on our way again." The three of them went off to do their jobs. Bright Moon and Pure Wind were meanwhile quietly praising Sanzong to each other. "What a splendid monk! He is indeed the beloved sage of the West in mortal form, and his true nature is not at all befuddled. The master told us to entertain him and give him some manfruit as a token of their old friendship, and he also warned us to be on our guard against those hooligans of his. They have murderous-looking faces and coarse natures. Thank goodness he sent them away, because if they were still with him, we wouldn't be able to give him the manfruit." "We don't know whether this monk is our master's old friend or not," said Pure Wind. "We'd better ask him to make sure." The two of them went over to Sanzong and said, "May we ask you, venerable master, whether you are the Sanzong of the great Tang who is going to the western heaven to fetch the scriptures?" "Yes, I am," said Sanzong, returning their bows. "How did you know who I was?" "Our master told us before he went," they replied, "to go out to meet you long before you got here, but as you came faster than we expected, we failed to do so. Please sit down, teacher, while we fetch you some tea." "I am honored," said Sanzong. Bright Moon hurried out and came back with a cup of fragrant tea for him. When Sanzong had drunk the tea, Pure Wind said to Bright Moon, "We must do as our teacher told us and fetch the fruit." The two boys left Sanzong and went to their room, where one of them picked up a golden rod, and the other a red dish, on which he put many a silk handkerchief as cushioning. They went into the manfruit orchard, where Pure Wind climbed the tree and tapped the fruit with the golden rod, while Bright Moon waited below to catch them in the dish. They only took a few moments to knock down and catch a couple, which they took to the front hall to offer to Sanzong with the words, "This temple of ours is on a remote and desolate mountain, Master Sanzong, and there is no local delicacy we can offer you except these 2 pieces of fruit. We hope they will quench your thirst." At the sight of the manfruit, the monk recoiled some 3 feet, shaking with horror. "Goodness me!" he exclaimed. "How could you be so reduced to starvation in this year of plenty as to eat human flesh? And how could I possibly quench my thirst with a newborn baby?" This monk has developed eyes of flesh and a mortal body in the battlefield of mouths and tongues and the sea of disputation, thought Pure Wind, and he can't recognize the treasures of this home of immortals. "Venerable Master," said Bright Moon, "this is what is called manfruit, and there is no reason why you should not eat one." "Nonsense, nonsense," said Sanzong. "They were conceived by their fathers and mothers, and had to go through no end of suffering before they were born. How can you treat them as fruit when they haven't been alive for 3 days yet?" "They really and truly grew on a tree," said Pure Wind. "Stuff and rubbish," Sanzong replied. "Babies don't grow on trees. Take them away, you inhuman beasts." As he refused absolutely to eat them, the boys had to take the dish away and go back to their room. This fruit was rather difficult to handle, and did not keep for long without becoming hard and inedible, so the boys sat on their beds and ate one each. Oh dear, what a thing to happen! There was only a wall separating their room from the kitchen, where their whispering could be clearly heard. Pig was in there cooking the rice when he heard them talk as they fetched the goldenrod and red dish. Later he heard them saying that the Tang priest had not recognized the manfruit, which was why they took them back to their room to eat. "I'd love to try one, but I don't know how," thought Pig, unable to prevent his mouth from watering. Too stupid to do anything about it himself, he had to wait until he could talk it over with Brother Monkey. He had now lost all interest in stoking the stove as he stood in front of it, constantly poking his head outside the kitchen to look for Monkey. Before long, Monkey appeared leading the horse, which he tethered to a locust tree. As he came round to the back, the blockhead waved frantically to him and said, "Come here, come here." Monkey turned round, came to the kitchen door, and said, "What are you yelling for, idiot? Not enough food for you? Let the old monk eat his fill, then we too can go to the next big house that lies ahead and beg for some more." "Come in," said Pig. "It's not about that. Do you know that there's a treasure in this temple?" "What treasure?" Monkey asked. "I can't describe it because you've never seen it," said Pig, "and if I gave it to you, you wouldn't know what it was." "Don't try to make a fool of me, idiot," said Monkey. "When I studied the way of immortality 500 years ago, I traveled on my cloud to the corners of the ocean and the edge of the sky. I've seen everything.
Have you seen Manfruit, then?
Pig asked. No, I haven't, said Monkey with astonishment. But I've heard that manfruit is grass-returning cinnabar, and that anyone who eats it lives to a great old age. Where can we get some?
Here, said Pig. Those boys gave 2 to our master, but that old monk didn't know what they were and thought they were newborn babies. He wouldn't eat them. Those boys are disgraceful. Instead of giving them to us, they should have done as they should have done. They sneaked off into their room and had one each. Gobble, gobble, gobble. I was drooling. I wish I knew how I could try one. Surely you've got some dodge for getting into the orchard and pinching a few for us to taste. You have, haven't you?
Easy, said Monkey. I'll go in and pick some. As he rushed out, Pig grabbed him and said,
I heard them saying in their room that they needed a golden rod to knock them down with. You must do this very carefully. Nobody must know about it.
I know, replied Monkey. The great sage made himself invisible and slipped into the boy's room, only to find that after eating the fruit, they had gone to the front hall where they were talking to Sanzang. Monkey looked all around the room for the golden rod until he saw a 2-foot length of gold hanging from the window lattice. It was about as thick as a finger. At the bottom was a lump like a bulb of garlic, and at the top was a hole through which was fastened a green silk tassel. So this must be what they call the golden rod, he thought as he took it down. He left the room and pushed open a pair of gates at the back. Goodness, he saw a garden with red jeweled balconies and a twisting artificial hill. Rare flowers try to outshine the sun. The bamboo attempts to be bluer than the sky. Outside the floating cup pavilion, a curve of willows hangs like mist. Before the platform to admire the moon, clumps of lofty pines make splashes of indigo. Bright, bright red, the pomegranate thicket. Deep, deep green, the cushions of grass. Richly blue were the jade-colored orchids. Rushing and powerful, the water in the stream. Crimson cassia blazed beside golden wells and wutong trees. Brocade-rich locust trees flanked red balconies and steps. There was peach blossom in pink and white. Yellow and fragrant chrysanthemums that had seen 9 autumns. Trellises of raspberries flourish by the peony pavilion. Banks of hibiscus lead to beds of tree peonies. There is no end of noble bamboos that have held out against frost, or lordly pines that defy the snows. Then there are nests of cranes and houses for deer, square ponds and round pools, spring water like fragments of jade, golden heaps of flowers. The north wind bursts the white plum blossom open. When spring comes, it touches the crab apple with red. It can be rightly called the most splendid view on earth, the finest garden in the West. Before Monkey had time to take all of this in, he saw another gate. When he pushed it open, he saw vegetables for each of the 4 seasons. spinach, celery, beetroot, ginger, and kelp. Bamboo shoots, sweet potato, melons, oblong gourd, and wild rice stem. Onions, garlic, coriander, scallion, and shallots. Lettuce, artemisia, and bitter alisma. Gourds and aubergines that must be planted. Rutabaga, turnips, docks, red amaranth, green cabbage, and purple mustard plant. So they're Taoists who grow their own food, thought Monkey, smiling to himself. When he had crossed the vegetable garden, he saw yet another gate, and when he opened it, there was a huge tree in front of him, with fragrant branches and shade-giving green leaves, shaped like those of plantains. The tree was about 1,000 feet high, and its trunk was some 70 or 80 feet round. Monkey leant against it and looked up, and on a branch that was pointing south, he saw manfruit, which really did look just like a newborn child. The stem came from its bottom, and as it hung from the branch, its hands and feet waved wildly around, and it shook its head. Monkey was thoroughly delighted, and he thought in admiration, "What a splendid thing! A real rarity! A real rarity!" And with that thought, he went shooting up the tree. Now, there's nothing that monkeys are better at than climbing trees to steal fruit, and one blow from the golden rod sent the manfruit tumbling down. He jumped down to fetch it, but it was nowhere to be seen. He searched the grass all around, but could not find a trace of it. "That's odd," he thought. "Very odd indeed. It must be able to use its feet, but even then it won't be able to get past the wall. No, I've got it. The local deity of this garden has hidden it away to stop me stealing it." He made some finger magic and uttered the sacred sound, Om, which forced the garden deity to come forward, bow, and say, "You summon me, great sage? What are your orders?" "Surely you know," Monkey said, "that I am the most famous criminal on earth. When I stole the sacred peaches, the imperial wine, and the elixir of immortality some years ago, nobody dared to try and take a cut. How comes it that when I take some fruit today, you pinch my very first one? This fruit grows on a tree, and the birds of the air must have their share of it, so what harm will be done if I eat one? Why did you snatch it the moment it fell down?" "Great sage," the deity replied, "don't be angry with me. These treasures belong to the immortals of the earth, and I am a ghost immortal, so I would never dare take one. I've never even had the good fortune to smell one." "If you didn't take it, why did it disappear the moment I knocked it down from the tree?" Monkey asked. "You may know that these treasures give eternal life, great sage," the deity replied, "but you don't know about their origin." "Where did they come from, then?" Monkey asked. "These treasures," the deity replied, "take 3,000 years to blossom, another 3,000 to form, and 3,000 more to ripen. In almost 10,000 years, only 30 grow. Anyone lucky enough to smell one will live for 360 years, and if you eat one, you will live to be 47,000. These fruit fear only the 5 elements." "What do you mean, fear only the 5 elements?" Monkey asked. "If they meet metal," the deity said, "they fall. If they meet wood, they rot. If they meet water, they dissolve. If they meet fire, they are burnt. And if they meet earth, they go into it. If you tap them, you have to use a golden rod, otherwise they won't drop. And when you knock them down, you must catch them in a bowl padded with silk handkerchiefs. If they come into contact with wooden utensils, they rot, and even if you eat one, it won't make you live any longer. When you eat them, you must do so off porcelain, and they should be cooked in clear water. If they come in contact with fire, they become charred and useless, and they go into any earth they touch. When you knocked one to the ground just now, it went straight in, and as the earth here will now live for 47,000 years, you won't be able to make any impression on it, even with a steel drill. It's much harder than wrought iron. But if a man eats one, he wins long life. Try hitting the ground if you don't believe me. Monkey raised his gold-ringed cudgel and brought it down on the ground. There was a loud noise as the cudgel sprang back. The ground was unmarked. "So you're right," said Monkey. "You're right. This cudgel of mine can smash rocks to powder and even leave its mark on wrought iron, but this time it did no damage at all. This means that I was wrong to blame you. You may go back now." At this, the local deity went back to his shrine. The great sage now had a plan. He climbed the tree and then held the rod in one hand while he undid the lapel of his cloth tunic and made it into a kind of pouch. He pushed the leaves and branches aside and knocked down 3 man-fruits, which he caught in his tunic. He jumped out of the tree and went straight to the kitchen, where a smiling pig asked him if he got any. "This is the stuff, isn't it?" said Monkey. "I was able to get some. We mustn't leave Friar Sand in the dark, so give him a shout."
"Come here, Friar Sand," Pig called, waving his hand.
Friar Sand put the luggage down, hurried into the kitchen, and asked, "Why'd you call me?" "Do you know what these are?" Monkey asked, opening his tunic. "Man-fruits," said Friar Sand as soon as he saw them. "Good," said Monkey. "You know what they are. Have you eaten them?" "I've never eaten them," Friar Sand replied. "But when I was the curtain lifting general in the old days, I used to escort the imperial carriage to the peach banquets, and I saw some that immortals from over the seas brought as birthday presents for the Queen Mother. Now, I've certainly seen them, but I've never tasted one. Please, give me a bit to try." "No need to ask," said Monkey. "We're having one each." So each of them had 1 man-fruit to eat. Pig had both an enormous appetite and an enormous mouth, and had, moreover, been suffering pangs of hunger ever since hearing the Taoist boys eat. So the moment he saw the fruit, he grabbed one, opened his mouth, and gulped it down whole. Then he put on an innocent expression and shamelessly asked the other 2 what they were eating. "Man-fruit," Friar Sand replied.
"What does it taste like?"
Pig asked. "Ignore him, Friar Sand," said Monkey. "He's already eaten his, and he's no business to ask you."
"Brother," said Pig, "I ate mine too fast. I didn't nibble it delicately and taste the flavor like you 2. I don't even know if it had a stone or not as I gulped it straight down. You should finish what you've started. You've whetted my appetite, so you ought to get me another to eat slowly."
"You're never satisfied," Monkey replied. These things aren't like rice or flour. You can't go stuffing yourself full of them. Only 30 grow in every 10,000 years, so we can think ourselves very lucky indeed to have a whole one each. Come off it, pig. You've had enough. He got up, slipped into the Taoist boy's room with the goldenrod, and put it back without letting himself be seen through the window. He paid no more attention to Pig, who went on grumbling. Before long, the Taoist boys were back in their room, and they heard Pig moaning.
I didn't enjoy my man-fruit. I wish I could have another.
Pure Wind's suspicion were aroused, and he said to Bright Moon, "Did you hear that long-snouted monk saying he wished he could have another man-fruit? Our master told us when he went that we were to be careful of those gangsters and not let them steal our treasures." "This is terrible, terrible," said Bright Moon. "What's the goldenrod doing on the floor? We'd better go into the garden and take a look around." The two of them hurried out and found the garden gates open. "We shut this gate," said Pure Wind, "so why is it open?" They rushed round the flower garden, found the vegetable garden gate open too, and tore into the manfruit garden. They leant on the tree and looked up into it to count the fruit, but however often they added the number up, it always came to 22. "Can you do arithmetic?" Bright Moon asked, and Pure Wind replied, "Yes, tell me the figures." "There were originally 30 man-fruits," said Bright Moon. "When our master opened the garden, 2 were divided up and eaten, which left 28. Just now we knocked 2 down to give to the Tang priest, which left 26. But there are only 22 now, which means that we're 4 short. It goes without saying that those bad men must have stolen them. Let's go and tell the Tang priest what we think of him." The two of them went from the garden to the front hall, where they pointed at Sun Zong and poured the most filthy and stinking abuse on him, calling him Baldy this and Baldy that. It was more than Sun Zong could stand, so he said, "What are you making all this fuss about, immortal boys? Please stop. I wouldn't mind you being a bit offhand with me, but you can't talk in this outrageous way." "Are you deaf?" Pure Wind asked. "We're not talking a foreign language, and you can understand us perfectly well. You've stolen our man-fruit, and you've no right to forbid us to mention it." "What does man-fruit look like?" Sun Zong asked. "It's what we offered you just now, and you said looked like babies." "Amitabha Buddha!" Sun Zong exclaimed. "I shook with terror at the very sight of them. I couldn't possibly steal one. Even if I were being racked by the most terrible greed, I could never commit the crime of eating one of those. What do you mean by making so unjust an accusation?" "Although you didn't eat any," said Pure Wind, "those underlings of yours stole and ate some." "Even if they did, you shouldn't shout like that. Wait till I've questioned them. If they stole some, I'll see that they make it up to you." "Make it up?" said Bright Moon. "They are things that money can't buy." "Well then," said Sun Zong, "if money won't buy them, decent behavior is worth 1,000 pieces of gold, as the saying goes. I'll make them apologize to you, and that will be that. Besides, we still don't know whether they did." "Of course they did," retorted Bright Moon. They're still quarreling in there because they were divided unfairly. Come here, disciples, called Sanzang.
We've had it, said Friar Sand when he heard Sanzang calling. The game's up. Our master is calling us, and the young Taoists are swearing and cursing. The cat must be out of the bag.
How disgraceful, said Monkey. All that fuss about some food. But if we confess it, they'll say it was stealing food. The best thing is not to admit it at all.
Quite right, quite right. We'll cover it up, said Pig.
And three of them went from the kitchen to the hall. If you don't know how they denied it, listen to the explanation in the next installment. Chapter 25. The immortal Jin Yuan captures the pilgrim priest. Monkey makes havoc in the Wuzhuang temple. The meal is cooked, the three disciples said as they entered the hall. What did you call us for? I'm not asking about the meal, disciples, said Sanzang. This temple has things called manfruit or something that look like babies. Which of you stole and ate some?
I don't know anything about it, honest, I don't. I never saw any,
said Pig. That grinning one did it, said Pure Wind. That grinning one. I've had a smile on my face all my life, shouted Monkey. Are you going to stop me smiling just because you can't find some fruit or other? Don't lose your temper, disciple, said Sanzang. As men of religion, we should control our tongues and not eat food that befuddles our minds. If you ate their fruit, you should apologize to them instead of trying to brazen it out like this. Seeing that his master was talking sense, Brother Monkey began to tell the truth. I didn't start it, master, he said. Pig heard the Taoist boys eating something called manfruit next door and wanted to try one himself. He made me go and get 3 so that we 3 disciples could have one each. But now they've been eaten, there's no point in waiting around here. How can these priests deny that they are criminals when they've stolen 4 of our manfruits? Said Bright Moon.
Amitabha Buddha, exclaimed Pig. If he pinched 4 of them, why did he only share out 3? He must have done the dirty on us. He continued to shout wildly in this vein.
Now that they knew that the fruit had been stolen, the 2 boys started to abuse them even more foully. The great sage ground his teeth of steel in fury, glaring his fiery eyes and tightening his grip on his iron cudgel. Damn those Taoist boys, he thought when he could restrain himself no longer. If they'd hit us, we could have taken it. But now they're insulting us to our faces like this. I'll finish their tree off, then none of them can have any more fruit. Splendid, Monkey. He pulled a hair out from the back of his head, breathed a magic breath on it, said, "Change!" and turned it into an imitation monkey who stayed with the Tang priest, Pig, and Friar Sand to endure the cursing and swearing of the Taoist boys, while the real monkey used his divine powers to leap out of the hall by cloud. He went straight to the garden and struck the manfruit tree with his gold-banded cudgel. Then he used his supernatural strength that could move mountains to push the tree over with a single shove. The leaves fell, the branches splayed out, and the roots came out of the ground. The Taoists would have no more of their grass-returning cinnabar. After pushing the tree over, Monkey searched through the branches for manfruit, but he could not find a single one. These treasures dropped at the touch of metal, and as Monkey's cudgel was ringed with gold, while being made of iron, another of the five metals, one tap from it brought them all tumbling down, and when they hit the ground they went straight in, leaving none on the tree. Great, 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 he said. That'll make them all cool down. He put the iron cudgel away, went back to the front of the temple, shook the magic hair, and put it back on his head. The others did not see what was happening, as they had eyes of mortal flesh. A long time later, when the two Taoist boys felt they had railed at them for long enough, Pure Wind said to Bright Moon, "These monks will take anything we say. We've sworn at them as if we were swearing at chickens, but they haven't admitted anything. I don't think they can have stolen any after all. The tree is so tall and the foliage is so dense that we may well have miscounted, and if we have, we shouldn't be cursing them so wildly. Let's go and check the number again." Bright Moon agreed, and the pair of them went back to the garden. When they saw that the tree was down with its branches bent out, the leaves fallen, and the fruit gone, they were horror-struck. Pure Wind's knees turned soft and he collapsed, while Bright Moon trembled and shook. Both of them passed out, and there was a verse to describe them. When Sanzang came to the mountain of infinite longevity, Monkey finished the grass-returning cinnabar. The branches were splayed out, the leaves fallen, and the tree down. Bright Moon and Pure Wind's hearts both turned to ice. The two of them lay in the dirt, mumbling deliriously and saying, "What are we to do? What are we to do?" The elixir of our Wuzhuang temple has been destroyed and our community of immortals is finished. Whatever are we going to say to the master when he comes back? "Stop moaning, brother," said Bright Moon. "We must tidy ourselves up and not let those monks know anything's wrong. That hairy-faced sod who looks like a thunder god must have done it. He must have used magic to destroy our treasure. But it's useless to argue with him, as he'll deny everything, and if we start a quarrel with him and fighting breaks out, we two haven't a chance against the four of them. We'll have to fool them and say that no fruit is missing. We'll pretend we counted wrong before and apologize to them. Their rice is cooked and we can give them a few side dishes to eat with it. The moment they've each got a bowl of food, you and I will stand on either side of the door, slam it shut, and lock it. After that, we can lock all the gates and they won't be able to get away. When our master comes back, he can decide what to do with them. That old monk is a friend of his, so our master may want to forgive him as a favor. And if he doesn't feel forgiving, we've got the criminals under arrest and may possibly not get into trouble ourselves." "Absolutely right," said Pure Wind. The two of them pulled themselves together, forced themselves to look happy, and went back to the front hall. "Master," they said, bowing low to Sanzang, "we were extremely rude to you just now. Please forgive us." "What do you mean?" asked Sanzang. "The fruit is all there," they replied. "We couldn't see it all before, as the tree is so tall and the foliage so thick, but when we checked just now, the number was right." "You're too young to know what you're doing," said Pig, taking the chance to put the boot in. "Why did you swear and curse at us, and try to frame us up, you bastards?" Monkey, who understood what the boys were up to, said nothing and thought, "Lies, lies! The fruit is all finished. Why ever are they saying this? Can it be that they know how to bring the tree back to life?" "Very well, then," Sanzang was saying meanwhile. bring our rice in, and we'll be off after eating it." Pig went off to fill their bowls, and Friar Sand arranged a table and chairs. The two boys hurried out and fetched some side dishes: salted squash, salted eggplant, turnips and wine lees, pickle bean, salted lettuce, and mustard plant, some 7 or 8 plates in all. These they gave to the pilgrims to eat with their rice, and then they waited on them with a pot of good tea and 2 cups. As soon as the 4 pilgrims had their rice bowls in their hands, the boys, who were on either side of the doorway, slammed the doors to, and locked them with a double-sprung bronze lock.
"You shouldn't do that, boys," said Pig with a smile. "Even if the people round here are a bit rough, there's no need to shut the doors while we eat."
"Yes, yes," said Bright Moon. "We'll open them after lunch." Pure Wind, however, was abusive. "I'll get you, you greedy, bald-headed food thief," he said. "You ate our immortal fruit and deserve to be punished for the crime of stealing food from fields and gardens. On top of that, you've pushed our tree over and ruined our temple source of immortality. How dare you argue with us? Your only chance of reaching the western heaven and seeing the Buddha is to be reborn and be rocked in the cradle again." When Sun Zong heard this, he dropped his rice bowl, feeling as if a boulder was weighing down his heart. The two boys went and locked the main and inner gates of the temple, then came back to the main hall to abuse them with filthy language and call them criminals and bandits till evening, when they went off to eat. The two of them returned to their rooms after supper. "You're always causing trouble, you ape," grumbled Sun Zong at Monkey. "You stole their fruit, so you should have let them lose their temper and swear at you. Then that would have been the end of it. Why on earth did you push their tree over? If they took this to court, you wouldn't be able to get off even if your own father were on the bench." "Don't make such a row, master," said Monkey. "Those boys have gone to bed, and when they're asleep we can do a midnight flit." "But all the gates have been locked," said Friar Sand, "and they've been shut very firmly. So how can we possibly get away?" "Don't let it bother you," said Monkey. "I have a way."
"We weren't worried that you wouldn't have a way," said Pig. "You can turn yourself into an insect and fly out through the holes in the window lattice. But you'll be leaving poor old us, who can't turn ourselves into something else, to stay here and carry the can for you."
"If he does a trick like that and doesn't take us with him, I'll recite that old sutra. He won't get away scot-free then." Pig was both pleased and worried to hear this.
"What do you mean, master?" he said.
"I know that the Buddha's teachings include a Lankavatara Sutra, a Lotus Sutra, a Peacock Sutra, an Avalokitesvara Sutra, and a Diamond Sutra, but I never heard of any old sutra." "What you don't know, brother," said Monkey, "is that the Bodhisattva Guanyin gave this band I have round my head to our master. He tricked me into wearing it, and now it's virtually rooted there, and I can't take it off. The spell or sutra for tightening this band is what he meant by the old sura. If he says it, my head aches. It's a way he has of making me suffer. Please don't recite it, master. I won't abandon you. I guarantee that we'll all get out." It was now dark, and the moon had risen in the east. It's quiet now, said Monkey, and the moon is bright. This is the time to go.
Stop fooling about, brother, said Pig. The gates are all locked, so where can we possibly go?
Watch this trick, said Monkey, and gripping his cudgel in his hand, he pointed at the doors and applied unlocking magic to them. There was a clanking sound, and the locks fell from all the doors and gates, which he pushed them open.
Not half clever, said Pig. A locksmith with his skeleton keys couldn't have done it anything like as fast.
Nothing difficult about opening these doors, said Monkey. I can open the southern gates of heaven just by pointing at them. Then he asked his master to go out and mount the horse. Pig shouldered the luggage, Friar Sand led the horse, and they headed west. You carry on, Monkey said, while I go back to make sure that those two boys will stay asleep for a month. Mind you don't kill them, disciple, said Sanzong, or you'll be on a charge of murder in the pursuit of theft as well. I'm aware of that, replied Monkey, and went back into the temple. Standing outside the door of the room where the boys were sleeping, he took a couple of sleep insects from his belt. These were what he had used when he fooled the heavenly king Virudaka at the eastern gate of heaven, and now he threw them in through a gap in the window lattice. They landed straight on the boys' faces and made them fall into a deeper sleep from which they would not wake up for a long time. Then he streaked back by cloud and caught up with Sanzong. They headed west along the main road. That night, the horse never stopped, and they kept on till dawn. "You'll be the death of me, you ape," said Sanzong. "Because of your greed, I've had to stay awake all night." "Stop grumbling," said Monkey. "Now that it's light, you can rest in the forest beside the road and build your strength up before we move on." Sanzong obediently dismounted and sat down on the roots of a pine tree, using it as a makeshift meditation platform. Friar Sand put down the luggage and took a nap, while Pig pillowed his head on a rock and went to sleep. Monkey, the great sage, had his own ideas and amused himself leaping from tree to tree. After the lecture in the palace of the original celestial Jade Pure One, the great immortal Jin Wan led his junior immortals down from the Tushita heaven through the jade sky on auspicious clouds, and in a moment they were back at the gates of the Wuzhuang Temple. The gates, he saw, were wide open, and the ground was clean. "So, pure wind and bright moon aren't so useless after all," he said. "Usually they're still in bed when the sun is high in the sky. But now, with us away, they got up early, opened the gates, and swept the grounds." All the junior immortals were delighted. Yet when they went into the hall of worship, there was no incense burning, and nobody to be seen. Where were Bright Moon and Pure Wind, they wondered. They probably thought that with us not here, they could steal some stuff and clear out. "What an outrageous idea," said the great immortal. "As if men cultivating immortality could do anything so evil. I think they must have forgotten to shut the gates before they went to sleep last night, and not have woken up yet." When the immortals went to look in their room, they found the doors closed, and heard the boys snoring. They hammered on the doors and shouted for all they were worth, but the boys did not wake up. They forced the doors down and pulled the boys from their beds. The boys still did not wake up. "Fine immortal boys you are," said the great immortal with a smile. When you become an immortal, your divine spirit should be so full that you do not want to sleep. Why are they so tired? They must have been bewitched. Fetch some water at once. A boy hastily handed him half a bowl of water. He intoned a spell, took a mouthful of the water, and spurted it on their faces. This broke the enchantment. The two of them woke up, opened their eyes, rubbed their faces, looked around them, and saw the great immortal, as well as all their immortal brothers. Pure Wind bowed, and Bright Moon kowtowed in their confusion, saying, Master, that old friend of yours, the priest from the east, a gang of bandits, murderous, murderous. Don't be afraid, said the great immortal with a smile. Calm down and tell us about it. Master, said Pure Wind, the Tang priest from the east did come. It was quite soon after you had left. There were 4 monks and a horse, 5 of them altogether. We did as you had ordered and picked 2 man-fruits to offer him, but the venerable gentleman was too vulgar and stupid to know what our treasures were. He said that they were newborn babies and refused to eat any, so we ate 1 each. Little did we imagine that one of his 3 disciples, called Brother Sun Wukong, or Monkey, would steal 4 man-fruits for them to eat. We spoke to him very reasonably, but he denied it and secretly used his magic. It's terrible. At this point, the 2 boys could no longer hold back the tears that now streamed down their cheeks. Did the monk strike you? Asked the immortals. No, said Bright Moon. He only felled our man-fruit tree. The great immortal did not lose his temper when he heard their story. Don't cry, he said. Don't cry. What you don't realize is that Monkey is an immortal of the Supreme Monad, and that he played tremendous havoc in the Heavenly Palace. He has vast magic powers, but he has knocked our tree over. Could you recognize those monks? I could recognize all of them, replied Pure Wind. In that case, come with me, said the great immortal. The rest of you are to prepare the instruments of torture, and be ready to flog them when we come back. The immortals did as they were told, while the great immortal, Bright Moon, and Pure Wind pursued Sanzang on a beam of auspicious light. It took them but an instant to cover 300 miles. The great immortal stood on the edge of the clouds and gazed to the west, but he did not see Sanzang. Then he turned round to look east and saw that he had left Sanzang over 250 miles behind. Even riding all night, that venerable gentleman had covered